Think back to freshman year of high school. Wasn't it just the most magical year of your life? Yeah, didn't think so. I moved to Albuquerque from Louisiana at the beginning of my 9th grade year. I was the new kid in a large public high school, so I didn't know anybody. But I did make friends with a rock outside hallway A, where I would spend most of my lunches alone. Until one day, my 9th grade English teacher, also the speech and debate coach, Mr. Newsom, stopped by and said, "Hey, you should join speech and debate." Now, given that this was the first time that anyone outside my own family had spoken to me in this new town, it was an issue I decided to take to heart. And to this day, I consider that moment to be the most transformative moment of my life. It was through speech and debate that I found my first friends. I found a passion. I found a career. I found my voice. Coaching speech and debate for the past 18 years has been incredibly rewarding. And that's where Gina comes in.
At the beginning of my freshman year, I was convinced I was going to be the next LeBron. I know, sorry, Cleveland, too soon. But growing up in our small town, almost everyone had one interest in common: sports. And the first 14 years of my life revolved around playing basketball. As high school began, I started to think ahead to college, and I realized I was going to need more skills than my sick crossover and sweet layup in order to get by. That's when I walked into room 406 to have my first IEP meeting with Mr. Smith. He told me, "You should join speech and debate." That was the most terrifying idea I had ever heard of by that point in my life. But somehow, Mr. Smith convinced me that voluntarily spending all of my weekends competing in public speaking contests was the best use of my time. From that moment forward, speech and debate not only helped me pursue my dreams, but it also prepared me for life after high school and the painful task of finally growing up and getting a job.
Now, a recent LinkedIn survey of hiring managers across the country found that the skill most needed in the workplace and the skill most lacking from new employees was the same one. It wasn't technology, it wasn't coding, it wasn't even math, it was communication. Now, given that this is the greatest deficit facing our workplace, how are our schools preparing for that reality? Is there a required course on communication or public speaking anywhere in the K through 12 curriculum? Not in New Mexico. And we already know that students are spending hundreds of hours every year on standardized tests. And that doesn't include the most common form of assessment still used by teachers to this day, which is the pen and paper test. Now, those of you not in school anymore, think about that for a second. When's the last time you were asked to take a pen and paper test? Now think about how often are you forced to communicate with your boss, with your coworkers, with your spouse, most importantly, your barista. Maybe, just maybe, this is all rooted in what has been documented as humanity's greatest fear. Not spiders, not snakes, not heights, not even death, but public speaking.
Unfortunately, schools just aren't doing enough to help students overcome this fear, either inside or outside of the classroom. In the Albuquerque public school system, of the 13 traditional high schools, just 7 offer a speech and debate program. If I was to sit down with the principals of those 6 other schools, I would tell them speech and debate is the most transformative experience you can offer your students, not only academically, but in life as well. It is the reason I got into my dream school. It is the reason I feel like I can do anything I set my mind to.
So what is this activity that is transforming lives all across the country? Isn't speech and debate just a bunch of nerdy kids in ill-fitting suits running around with dictionaries arguing about everything? Well, yeah, it is that. But it's also so much more. In the speech and debate world, there are a variety of different events, so there is literally something for everybody. First, there is interpretation.
In the form of humorous, dramatic, and duo, where you act out scenes from different plays, books, and other published works. One person can even play the part of several different characters. The next event is prose and poetry,
where students recite a series of poems and stories that are linked by a common theme. There's also informative speaking,
where you have 10 minutes to teach the audience about any topic of interest to you, be it backyard chickens, string theory, or the history of the potato. You also have original oratory,
where your goal is to persuade your audience that there is a problem in society that needs fixing. Think competitive TED Talk. The next event is extemporaneous speaking,
where you draw a topic out of an envelope about a current event, and you have 30 minutes to write and memorize a 7-minute speech, answering a question like, how should the international community help rebuild Syria when the war ends? And besides the speech events, there are 4 different debate events. The first debate event is Lincoln Douglas debate.
This is a one-on-one debate where topics relate to philosophy and values and morality. The topics change every 2 months and are related to things like civil disobedience, capital punishment, or animal rights. The next debate event is policy debate.
A 2-on-2 debate where students spend all year on one topic related to U.S. government policy. Heavily dependent on evidence, academic journals, and news articles, topics can range from education to immigration to foreign relations. You also have public forum debate.
Another 2-on-2 debate where the topics change every month because they are ripped from the headlines. Issues related to the Supreme Court, North Korea, or gun control. And the final event is congressional debate,
where students assume the roles of legislators by drafting legislation, using parliamentary procedure, and debating whether a bill should be passed or not.
Now, given our current political climate, our current political discourse, what activity could be more important? The ability to speak, the willingness to listen, the empathy to understand multiple perspectives. In a debate, you don't get to choose which side you're going to support because you have to be ready for all sides. This idea, which is one of the oldest in civilization, just might be needed now more than ever. So, Gina, how do we get people talking today?
There is no excuse for every middle school and every high school in the state of New Mexico not to offer a program. It will entirely transform the culture of your school. If you're an administrator, get a program going now at your school because you're limiting your students' opportunities otherwise. If you're a teacher, start sponsoring a program immediately. If you're a student, find a teacher willing to sponsor. If you cannot find one, go to your principal and demand one. Connect with the local speech and debate community in order to find the resources you need to get started. Because the timing to get started is perfect. In June 2020, Albuquerque will host the world's largest academic competition, the National Speech and Debate Tournament. It is one of the largest conferences ever hosted in Albuquerque, with over 10,000 visitors from across the country and across the globe, and over $10 million in economic impact. This isn't just some run-of-the-mill after-school club. This activity can literally transform our entire community and improve education. Our hope is by that time, every middle school and every high school in the state of New Mexico will offer a program.
And beyond just getting involved in speech and debate, any school with any classroom and any academic discipline can incorporate more speaking assessments into the classroom. For example, one day I was giving a reading quiz on the Odyssey. It was your traditional content assessment where I asked a series of questions, students turned in the answers. When one student failed the quiz miserably, I spoke to him after school. Turns out he did read, and turns out he could verbally tell me everything he had read. Oral assessments can help students of all ability levels. It's because these critical thinking, researching, and speaking skills are going to increase the academic outcomes of all students. But beyond just academics, communication is also the foundation on which we build relationships.
Through speech and debate, I was able to meet Trey, my closest mentor, one of my greatest friends, someone who changed the course of my life, and the first person I called when I got into Stanford. I was also able to meet people from all across New Mexico and even the country.
And that first teacher who talked to me on that rock all those years ago remains a good friend to this day. And it was that simple act of offering me the opportunity to join the program that changed the entire trajectory of my life. And Gina, a student I took the time to get to know 4 years ago, remains an important person in my life and changed everything I thought I knew about what students were capable of.
I've learned that you can be at the top of your field, whether that be science, engineering, or law. But if you cannot communicate that knowledge, if you cannot share that expertise, it doesn't matter.
And in a world dominated by alternative facts, fake news, Twitter echo chambers, and the most divisive political climate in 100 years, this willingness to listen, this confidence to share your voice, just might be the most transformative thing we can do in education right now.